Have you had a chance to watch Victor Wembanyama play yet?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the game the other day. They play again tonight, right? Uh, yeah, he's like the 2K creative player. Like every point guard that wants to be 7 foot, cheat code type vibes. But he's a solid talent. It's great to watch. It's a pretty entertaining game with the Ignite team, so it's dope.
There are players who are good, players who are great, and then, once in a very long while, someone arrives who makes everyone stop and ask whether the sport they've been watching all their lives is still the same game. Victor Wembanyama is that someone. Born on the 4th of January 2004 inches, Le Chesnay, a quiet suburb on the western edge of Paris, he came into the world as if the universe had drawn up a blueprint for the ideal basketball player, and then, for the first time in history, actually followed through. What separates him from every athlete who has ever been called a generational talent is that those words, in his case, feel like an understatement rather than an exaggeration. He discovered basketball early, joining the Youth Academy of Nanterre, 92 at the age of 11, and from the moment coaches first saw him move, they understood they were dealing with something that had no precedent. He was already unusually tall for his age, but height alone has never been enough. The world is full of tall people who never made it past amateur level. What made him different was the combination of that height with hands that could handle a basketball the way a point guard's hands do, footwork that belonged to a wing player, and defensive instincts that most professional veterans spend careers trying to develop. He turned professional at 16, stepping onto the court against grown men with a composure that suggested he had simply been waiting for the invitation. His time at Nanterre was followed by a stint at AS Vel, one of the most celebrated clubs in French basketball history, and then a defining season at Metropolitans 92, where he did something that had quite literally never been done before in French professional basketball. He led the entire league simultaneously in scoring, rebounds, and block shots. He was named the league's most valuable player, its best defender, and its top young player, all in the same season, at the age of 19. He wasn't just winning awards, he was collecting them in sets, as if the league had decided to invent new categories just to acknowledge everything he was doing that no existing category could contain. French basketball had produced talented players before, players who went on to have meaningful NBA careers, but nothing had prepared the country or the basketball world for what Wembanyama represented. By the time the NBA draft arrived in 2023, the anticipation surrounding him had reached a level that the league itself had not experienced in 2 decades. Scouts who had spent their entire careers evaluating talent were running out of comparisons. They kept reaching for the names of all-time greats, a little of this legend, a hint of that icon, and then admitting that none of those combinations quite captured what they were looking at. He stood 7 feet and 4 inches tall, with a wingspan that stretched even further beyond that, and yet he moved with the kind of fluid, unhurried grace that you would normally associate with players a foot shorter. He shot 3-pointers off the dribble, he switched onto guards on defense and didn't lose them. He altered shots without even needing to block them, simply raising his impossibly long arms and watching opponents change their minds mid-air. The San Antonio Spurs, holding the first overall pick, selected him without a moment's hesitation, and the selection felt less like a decision and more like an inevitability. San Antonio received him the way a city receives someone it has been waiting for. The Spurs franchise had a long and storied history of developing foreign-born players into icons of the game. It was almost part of their identity, and here was the most exciting international prospect the sport had ever produced, arriving in a city that seemed purpose-built to nurture exactly that kind of talent. His rookie season unfolded like a statement made directly to history. He averaged over 21 points, more than 10 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, and more than 3 blocks per game, a statistical line that had simply never existed for a first-year player before. He led the entire league in blocks and did it while shooting reasonably well from 3-point range, which meant that on any given possession, opposing teams had to decide whether to let him launch from distance or drive into the teeth of a defense anchored by the most disruptive shot blocker the modern game had seen. There was no good answer. He was named Rookie of the Year unanimously, becoming the first player since Blake Griffin to win the award without a single dissenting vote. And even that framing felt inadequate because Griffin, magnificent as he was, did not do what Wembanyama did defensively. What the statistics cannot fully capture, though, is the way watching him plays with your sense of what is physically possible. When he plants himself in the paint and rises to contest a shot, the player driving toward the basket has to recalculate in real time, because arms that long arriving that quickly from that height represent a problem that cannot be solved by conventional basketball instincts. When he catches the ball on the perimeter and rises for a three-pointer with a defender draped over him, the release point is so high that the contest barely registers. He shoots over people the way a lighthouse sits above the waterline, not just taller, but operating in a different vertical dimension entirely. His handle allows him to bring the ball up the court himself when needed, to initiate offense, to create for teammates, and to manufacture his own shot against switching defenses that have no ideal answer for his combination of size and skill. He is, in the most genuine sense of the phrase, impossible to game plan against in any conventional way. His second and third NBA seasons brought continued growth, deeper engagement with the offensive system around him, and the kind of incremental development that genuinely elite players undergo when they are not merely maintaining excellence but expanding it. He earned all-star selections in consecutive seasons, was recognized as the league's best defender, and continued leading the NBA in blocked shots, not just barely leading it, but doing so with a margin that reflected how thoroughly he had made shot blocking a personal domain. The San Antonio Spurs, meanwhile, began the slow process of becoming competitive again, assembling young talent around their franchise cornerstone. And by the time the 2025-26 season arrived, they had transformed into a genuine playoff threat, with Wembanyama at the center of everything they did on both ends of the court. His impact on the French national program has been no less significant. France had always possessed basketball talent and had produced players capable of competing at the highest international level, but Wembanyama elevated the conversation around French basketball in the way that only a transcendent individual talent can. Young players across the country began watching basketball differently, began dreaming in dimensions they had not previously considered, because one of their own had arrived in the NBA and immediately established himself not merely as a contributor, but as arguably the most fascinating player in the world. The French Basketball Federation understood what it had in him and what his visibility meant for the development of the sport throughout the country and, by extension, throughout Europe. There is something philosophically interesting about what Wembanyama represents for the sport more broadly. Basketball has always evolved through the emergence of players who forced the game to adapt, centers who could shoot from outside, change spacing, guards who could create off the dribble changed how defenses were constructed, players who could switch across multiple positions changed how lineups were assembled. Wembanyama does all of those things simultaneously, while also being the best shot blocker of his generation, which means he is not simply forcing one adaptation, but several at once. Opposing coaches spend enormous amounts of preparation time working out how to attack him and how to defend against him. And the honest answer, at this stage of his career, is that there are no satisfying solutions in either direction. You can try to attack him off the dribble and risk having your shot swatted into the third row. You can try to switch him onto a guard and watch him contain the possession with those endless arms. You can try to zone him and find that he simply shoots over it. The comparisons to all-time greats that began before he played a single NBA minute have not faded, they have deepened. There is a version of the future in which Wembanyama becomes the player who defines an era the way certain names define their eras, where basketball historians look back and divide the game into before and after his arrival. That future is not guaranteed, no future in sport ever is, but it is not merely possible. It is, given what he has already demonstrated, genuinely plausible. He is 22 years old. He has already won a Defensive Player of the Year award. He is already a two-time All-Star. He is already the most consistent shot blocker the league has seen in a generation. He has already led a franchise back toward relevance. And he is, by every reasonable measure, still getting better. The story of Victor Wembanyama is still in its early chapters, which is the most remarkable thing of all. What he has already done would constitute a distinguished career for most players. For him, it feels like an introduction. The game of basketball has seen extraordinary athletes, magnetic personalities, tactically revolutionary minds, and physical specimens who seem to exceed the limits of ordinary human construction. It has not, until now, seen all of those things assembled in a single player who also happens to be 22 years old and already performing at the level he is performing at. Whether or not the superlatives eventually catch up to the reality of his career, one thing seems certain. Victor Wembanyama came into the NBA as the most anticipated prospect anyone had ever seen, and he has, improbably, somehow managed to be worth it.